Welcome back again, everyone. I'm Lynn Doyle. This is It's Your Call, and our topic is one that we revisit this time of the year each and every year. We're talking about culling the herds. This is a process where hunters are allowed to go onto state-sanctioned areas and hunt deer as an effort to thin the deer population. Now, people who are on one side of this issue say it's an absolutely fantastic way to kind of minimize the growing number of deer, but the people on the other side of the issue say, no, wait a minute, it's cruel, it's inhumane, there's got to be a better way. We want to know what you have to say. So if you want to join in, you can go ahead and give us an email at lynn@lynndoyle.net. You can also find us on Facebook at Lynn Doyle or Lynn, It's Your Call Doyle. In fact, let's go to Facebook right now, because I have to tell you, this is one of those topics that just absolutely generates an amazing amount of responses. I'm going to share a couple of them with you, and then I'll find out what our guests have to say. Mark says, please, they are a menace. It is not unusual for me to see a herd of 10 or more in my front yard eating everything in sight. Kill the deer, eat the meat, use birth control, do anything you can to control them. But then Linda disagrees with him and says, I sure don't find them a menace. They're God's beautiful creatures. We have tons of them too, and I enjoy them. We do need to get a handle on them, but perhaps development needs to be stopped as a way to deal with it. Now, Christy says, it's better than them getting hit by cars, right? If there's an overpopulation of them and hunters can use the venison, why not have the hunts? And then David writes, I think efforts to find a viable contraceptive would be more humane. High densities of deer have created injuries, especially deer vehicle collisions. So I think a hunt is the only option at this point to protect our safety and our health. Those are just a samplings of some of the Facebook comments that we got. And I'm curious about what the panel thinks about birth control for deer. We can't get birth control in our high schools, but people are suggesting that that is a viable option. Really? Does it make sense?
Well, it is one of the things that the federal people at Valley Forge National Historical Park said they were going to do. They are now engaged, right now as we speak, engaged in shooting deer. They started last year. Friends of Animals, the group I'm with, sued, and we did hold it off during the winter of 2009-2010. However, they have started. We went on to the appeals court, and so far we have not been successful there. And they have said they're going to be shooting for 4 years, and then they will put the deer on birth control if the FDA approves.
All right, is this a really stupid question? The FDA has to approve it, and deer, what do they take their little pill every night before they go to bed? How do you put birth control into the deer population?
Well, it's invasive. One of the things the park is saying is the deer are eating the native plants, and there are too many invasive plants. But if you wanted to pick an evasive idea, contraceptive would be it. I mean, you would have to contain the deer, and you would have to give the deer a shot. You would have to give the deer a booster shot.
And who pays for that?
It's very expensive. The overall cost for the deer control at the National Park, Valley Forge, is $2 million.
Okay, so you're saying that you would be opposed to birth control, but you're also opposed to the culling activities?
I'm not opposed to birth control on a species of 7 billion on the Earth right now, and we have it, and that's our choice to use it if we'd like. But
you're
to
opposed
impose
to
it on free living animals is another story. It's unnatural.
So how do you respond to that when people are opposed to the hunt, but then they also don't like the idea of birth control?
Well, Lynn, I just come at it from a point of view of trying to manage natural resources and protect all the species. There are all sorts of methods for reducing the deer herd. Trap and transfer was tried in Somerset County, New Jersey, at tremendous expense, thousands of dollars per deer. That can't be used anymore because of the threat of transporting diseases across state lines. Birth control has been being researched. A variety of new drugs are on the way. One of them's been approved by the state of New Jersey, but it only works in captive herds. And for people who are managing natural resources, we do it on a shoestring. We're trying to manage for rare butterflies, rare birds, rare plants, rare orchids. And the only economical way to reduce the deer herd so that these other species can survive is to employ volunteer hunters.
We do know that relocation hasn't been successful, in large part because the deer, my understanding is in high percentages, die when relocated.
They don't survive.
And one of the encouraging aspects of the Facebook comments is that regardless of which side the commenters are on, everyone wants to find a solution, and I think that's clear from this panel as well. But maybe we need to provide more time to those other solutions before actively engaging in such a, what I'm going to entitle a lethal program. And if we have more time to look at the alternatives and really test them and see how they work out, maybe together there could be a dialogue that brings us closer to a compromise.
A viewer named Jack from St. Louis actually has written in and says controlled hunting, and he uses quotes around that terminology, is being considered and has been used in some cities here outside St. Louis to thin the herds and has been used very effectively. Is that essentially the same thing as culling the herd, what you're talking about here in the Philadelphia area?
That's exactly what we do at Philadelphia. We don't even use the H word. We don't even say hunt. Ours is a controlled deer management operation where sharpshooters, similar to the Valley Forge situation that the ladies described, go into our forests at night and remove deer. And we've been tremendously successful in the numbers of deer that we've taken. And done it with the utmost safety and efficiency throughout the 12 years that we've been doing it.
There are some questions for you on this side of the table asking about the sharpshooters and whether or not you are specifically using the meat that is harvested as a result of the controlled hunts to feed either the homeless or the hungry. Is that something that's routine, or does the hunter have the option?
Every pound of meat that is yielded from our project goes to homeless shelters, food banks in the Philadelphia area, and that's a requirement of us getting the permit from the Pennsylvania Game Commission. So no one's getting rich off of this, no one's having wonderful venison dinners because of it. It all goes to feed needy people.
So the question then for this side of the table is, if needy people are benefiting from this in some way, does that change your opinion in any way whatsoever? That's a question from Patrick.
I think that can be obviously we wouldn't be against helping needy people. But I think that argument or that justification comes up sometimes, and then sometimes you hear, well, there could be a problem. There could be a disease, such as chronic wasting disease with the deer. So we really have to get on top of this management. So when you're hearing on, 1 week, somebody talking about the disease the deer might have, and then the other week they're saying, we're really doing this so we can feed the hungry. The question is, what is the real issue here? And the real issue is that some people are inconvenienced by what they feel is too many deer. That's the real question.
I think also it's a matter of philosophy.
Go ahead,
If it has to happen, at least have the benefit of it feeding needy people. And it's much between the difference of sport hunting versus beneficial or respectful hunting. And to that, and I say that, for instance, a Native American culture, that there is every ounce of the animal is to be used. So at least we have that to put it easily to soften the blow.
Well, again, you have to remember the context. If you're culling the deer herd in a totally suburban area where you're not managing natural resources, if you're simply doing it because people don't want their landscape plants eaten, then that's a totally human-centered project. There's no other species benefiting from that except somebody's azalea bushes. And if you're managing preserved land where you're trying to protect literally hundreds of species, in New Jersey alone, we have 1/3 of all of our plants now are considered rare, and at least half of those, which is about 400 or 500 species, are suffering because of the overpopulation of deer. And again, one of your initial comment, Lynn, about state-sanctioned hunts, just general recreational hunting that happens in all 50 states, that generally doesn't reduce the deer herd. Mm-hmm. It's the targeted, controlled programs in park systems in the cities and in places like Union County, New Jersey, where I sat on the commission that started that controlled hunt 15 years ago. Those targeted controlled hunts that are not run as trophy hunts, they're purely deer management programs aimed at protecting natural resources. Those are the ones that have a chance to work. Recreational hunting is not reducing the deer herd. Recreational hunting is what elevated the deer herd during the 20th century.
Okay, on that note, we're going to take another break, but when we come back, we'll hear more from you. I'm posing the question on Facebook. What do you think about culling the herds, the deer herds all across the country? Are you in support of it, or are you opposed? In this so-called battle of man versus deer, which side are you on? We're going to find out when we return. Stay with us.